Good evening, Hell Rats. Welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC. I'm your host, Southern Cal. Today, we are going to be traveling way over to Germany, talk with Giles Lavery of the new Warlord album, and find out what's going on with everything. 10 songs released on High Roller Records. Please welcome to the show, Giles Lavery.
How you doing? Good to be here.
Thank you. Well, let's get into this. The new album, Spirit Soar. Is this kind of a tribute to Bill Tsamis, an
Bill
ode
Summer.
to?
Yeah, pronounced Tsamis. It is really, I mean, a lot of words, yeah, it's a tribute, but it's also, I mean, it's not a tribute in the sense that we're doing a bunch of cover tunes,
Yeah.
It's basically finishing songs that he started, or music that he started and didn't finish from various points in his career. Some of them were intended for the next Warlord album. Some of them he'd had sitting around a while, and he was talking about revisiting them. Yeah, I mean, tribute's probably the best way to put it because that is what it is in the sense that we took great care and attention to detail to make sure that this was something that hopefully he could feel good about and be proud of should he still be around, and it's all his music. I wrote lyrics and vocal melodies for most of it because there was an absence of lyrics and vocal melodies. That was always the last thing to go on with him. He'd write the music first, so we had the music first and we finished it.
Let's start off with the Worms of the Earth. I got the chance to watch that lyric video for that. Talk to us a little bit about Worms of the Earth.
Well, as I was just about to say, the thing about Bill is he would have songs sitting around for 20, sometimes 30 years. I mean, even the Holy Empire. There's only two of those songs that were written in that decade that album came out. The other stuff was from the mid 90s, like Glory and songs like that. And Worms of the Earth, that was something that he had talked about with me about finishing. And that's also something that he had talked about to Mark about finishing. He goes, we've got to get back to Worms of the Earth. From the same demo that hosted Worms of the Earth, there was a song called City Walls of Troy, and that only got recorded on the Holy Empire, which was now going 11 years before the present day. But even that took sort of 25, 30 years to make its way onto a record. So that's kind of how it worked with Bill. He would archive stuff for a very long time.
How did you guys all how did this all come about? How did everybody get together? Were you in contact with Mark about it, or?
Well, I mean, me and Mark have worked together since, I mean, I managed Graham Bonnet, and Mark was the drummer. I brought Mark in as a drummer in his solo, in Graham's solo band. Mark and I had stayed very close since I last did something with Warlord, which was 2013, and we did the live album, live in Athens. We did the tour. So I stayed in touch with Mark. I mean, I managed all of Warlord's affairs and business, and in that period between 2014 and going forward to the present day. So, and we did a huge reissue campaign via High Roller Records, where me and Bill and Mark worked very closely together in 2016 to start getting the catalog and all the archives released and done up in the most definitive editions possible for each album. So it was a sense of family anyway. It wasn't like I just came in sort of randomly from the sidelines. We were tight from I mean, I've known Bill since 2011, something like that, and I met Mark at that point too. So it's been a while now.
Well, it's been 9 years, I guess, since the release of The Hunt for Damien.
Yeah,
Which is quite a long time between albums, but man, it's great to have this out. This is some good stuff. One of my favorite songs on this was "The Bell Tolls."
sure.
It's something where if I'm seeing a band live, I like to sing along with it, and I felt like this was the song that I would totally be singing along with you guys, grooving out with you guys. Great vocals, of course, on it. Tell us a little bit about that song.
Same demo as Worms of the Earth, rehearsal demo back in '81. So that song has origins on the same demo that had Worms of the Earth, City Walls of Troy. The original Winds of Thor demo was on that as well. So yeah, that was back in the very, very, very early Warlord, that song. It was called For Whom the Bell Tolls, but when we came to titling it for this album, I'm like, well, that name is now, that title is now so synonymous with Metallica. It would almost be like people thinking, is that like a cover song? But Bill's demo
True.
predates Ride the Lightning by a number of years. But of course, no one would care about that now. They just say, hey, they're copying Metallica. So I shortened it to the Bell Tolls.
It's a great song. Great
Thank
hooks
you.
in it, definitely. By the time we got near the end of all this album and listening to it, with Revelation 19, I felt
Mm-hmm.
Mark's drums on that song are just kick ass. They're right out front. I felt like it was like the ending to a story. Like the whole album had a theme and it was telling a story. And at times in it's 7 minutes long. Do you view this the same way? Am I in the ballpark with saying that this was kind of like the conclusion to the story of the Warlord album?
Of this particular Warlord album, I mean, it's not a conceptual album. That was just the last song on the disc. So, and it felt like a fitting closing song. Bill recorded that with his side project, Lordy and Guard. And that was every Warlord album, the last three albums, has revisited a song that was recorded by Lordy and Guard, because Bill, I think, always wanted to record those songs in the definitive versions with a real drummer, because Lordy and Guard was programmed drums. And many of those songs, to make it even more confusing, before they were on Lordy and Guard albums, they were originally Warlord songs or intended for Warlord. So it's a bit of a tangled kind of web. But Revelation was definitely a Lordy and Guard song. And Bill felt it was one of the strongest compositions, along with Behold a Pale Horse. So we thought, well, let's revisit those two from the Lordy and Guard era and bring them into Warlord.
Behold the Pale Horse is the first song off the release.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was just this album beginning to end is it's just great. And you talked about the Lordy and Guard. Any of these songs on the new album here, are they new Warlord songs, let's say? Or are these all songs from the past?
It's all, except for the two Lordy and Guard. And vocal melodies written by Bill. Everything else, the lyrics and the vocal melodies had to be composed either by me for the most part. One was done with my friend Steve Blaze for Lily and Axe. And that was a song called The Watchman. If you have the CD, it's got 10 tracks. The vinyl only has 8. The full album is the 10-track disc, by the way. But they're new in that sense. People may have heard like instrumental demos from '81. They may have heard bits and pieces. There was a few of these where Bill's idea, meaning here's like a chorus riff, here's a verse, here's an intro riff. We had to put it together and arrange it in a couple of cases. But or some were fully. You'd be hard pressed to sort of find someone who had kind of like, hey, I've got all this music already. There's absolutely no way. I mean, so much of it was brought from Bill's cassette box and stuff like that. So some of the bits and pieces have been out as bonus stuff on some of the reissues, but it's most of it not.
Yes, 2 of the tracks on here are bonus CD tracks, like you mentioned. Let's talk about the musicians real quick. Of course, we had Mark Zonder on drums, Phil, and if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Bino, longtime bassist, Bino with Warlord on bass, Eric Jervis on guitar, and Jim Waldo on the keyboards. These guys have, that keyboard sound is, I can't imagine too much Warlord without that keyboard underlay in there. It's been on there since Deliver Us. It's I think a classic part of the Warlord sound itself.
Well, the interesting thing about what Jimmy did was, I mean, and me and Jimmy spend a lot of time because we both work together in Alcatrazz as well, but this band. But yes. Jimmy and me sat down and said, what? I said, Jimmy, what is the keyboard that was used on Deliver Us? He goes, that's a Minimoog. I said, do you have one of them? He goes, well, it's not a matter of having one of them. It's a setting. And yes, I've got it. He goes, I've got the Minimoog setting. I've got it right here on the box. And he played me some on a demo, and I'm like, now that sounds like Warlord. The minute you put that Minimoog in, input there, that's that doesn't sound like keyboards from a hymn album or you know, a modern day anything. This sounds like instantly like 1983, 1984. And he was really, really specific about getting that keyboard sound. And he busted his ass just making sure that he played all Bill's lines exactly how Bill's music was, and he was a huge Jimmy was an enormous part of why this record sounds like Warlord.
Oh, exactly. It's like I said, I couldn't imagine not having some form of keyboard sound since back to from Deliver Us and the Cannons of Destruction. It's always been
Yep.
there. It's a sound that's right up front with these guys. I'm sure you're proud of this whole album. Tell me what your favorite track is off of this album. What one you enjoyed singing the most?
It sort of changes. Wow. I mean, I was just actually I hadn't listened to it in a little while because you got to remember, like we finished this record in October. I was out riding my bike yesterday, and I thought, I'll put it on. I haven't heard it in ages. I thought it's release weekend. I'll put it on. I'll listen to it, and I was like, wow, we did a pretty good job with this record. And my favorite song, I mean, it sort of bounces between Pale Horse, The Bell Tolls. I like the title track. I kind of it's for me. I can just listen to it as an album and sort of forget that like I'm on it or had anything to do with it. I can just listen to it as like an album, and that's a good sign. I think I'm not listening to it going, oh man, I wish we'd done that differently or anything like that. I listen to it now and I go, man, there's nothing I'd change.
I was going to ask if listening to it now and being 7 months ago, was there something they're like, oh, I don't really remember
There's always
this,
a
or
little bit of like, there's always a little bit like, oh man, I could have added a little harmony vocal there, or I could have not had a harmony over there, or we could have maybe had a little bit of a choir there. But there's always like a little minor kind of like a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper maybe, but minimal, so minimal. And then on any other day, I might have said no. So it's no, I'm pretty happy with this one.
awesome. You guys did announce you have a couple of dates going on in Japan. Tell us
Mm.
about that.
Well, not just Japan. We have festivals in Europe. About half of them we get to announce. We have to wait for the official festival announcement before
Yep.
we can say anything. We are going to Japan on September, I think it's 28th, 29th.
Awesome. There's a lot of bands seem to be doing the festivals now, and not so much because of all the logistics and the problems with finding tour buses and trucks and things like that. Just putting a tour together in itself has become an obstacle. But are there any plans to maybe do a short Warlord tour, proper tour, let's say, and not so much festivals?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at doing a short run of America, hopefully early next year. I mean, again, these things can kind of be talked about and then all fall apart as we get down the road a bit. But this one's looking pretty good. It's tough to get a band like Warlord on the road in the States, but we are working towards that. So it's looking pretty good right now.
If we can we discuss a little bit about the Out of the Darkness with Jack Starr?
Well, I mean, as far as I know, it's going to be called Jack Starr. It's not going to be a Burning Star record. It's going to be a Jack Starr solo record, and it's going to be called Out of the Darkness 2, because it is a little bit more rock and roll like Out of the Darkness was, with some very heavy metal, but it's got that sort of New York swagger to a lot of it, and that's what Out of the Darkness was. You hear that in a lot of early Riot as well. It's very much like that.
Oh,
Jack just came. I mean, I've been working with and I've known Jack for a very long time. We've had our ups and downs and our rounds and rounds, and we've always stayed in touch. So he said, "Would you like to sing on the record?" I said, "Well, Jack, your timing kind of sucks. I'm just doing this Warlord thing. I'm right in the middle of it. But I just finished the Warlord record, and then Jack sent me a couple of demos, and I was like, man, I can't say no to this. This music's great. So it's all his lyrics, it's all his vocal melody.
has there been any kind of a release date in the works, or are you guys still working on it, putting finishing touches on it?
Oh yeah, we're still recording it. We're still finishing it up. So I guess we'll get done with it, and then we'll shop it to labels, and then we'll see who wants to run it up the flagpole.
If somebody doesn't jump on this one, I definitely think they're missing out on this. Just great stuff. Let's mention the artists on that. Of course, we mentioned Jack Starr. You got Kenny Rhino Earl on drums and Gene Cooper on bass, and yourself on the vocals.
Yeah.
Have you known all these guys? Have you worked with any of these guys besides Jack before?
I know Rhino for a long time. I've never met Gene, so it's a new name to me. But you know, it's just a great bunch of guys, a great team of people, and I'm really excited about this record.
How many songs do you have in the works for this album?
11.
11 songs. That's great.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this stuff. Just like I said, listening to the little piece of Hand of Doom was great. There was a couple other ones that Jack had brought over. He didn't mention any title names or working title names, but every song that we listened to was great. My engineer and producer up in New York happened to be down here, hence the party. We had done an interview with Jack before, so I like to put the face and the names, and if we can ever meet up, we had the chance to. So we had a great night at the house, and Linda, his wife, was here. It was just a good time had by all listening to this Out of the Darkness Part 2, as we've come to know it. So it was good, just great stuff. Great stuff.
That's great.
Well, I want to wish you the best of luck on these tours, these festivals, and everything else you got going on. Hopefully you can get over here to America and do some shows. It would be great to see it. As you mentioned, you have the shirt on, Alcatrazz. Would you like to give us some social medias for Alcatrazz? How, if somebody wants to find out more about Alcatrazz, how can we do that?
Alcatrazz Official is a Facebook page. AlcatrazOfficial.com is the website. We just got done doing an American tour in March, early April with Lillian Axe and Girlschool, and we got what we're planning later in the year. We're going to be doing like West Coast. We did the East Coast first. Now we're going to come back to the West Coast with the same package.
Awesome.
Later in the year, after the Warlord stuff. So, and we're going to start a new record. So we're keeping busy on all fronts.
Awesome. I had a chance to see Lillian Axe right here in my hometown a few months ago, and man, what a great band, and their vocalist, what just a great guy, great band right there. All right. How about Warlord? If we're looking to find out a little bit more about Warlord, how can we do that?
Warlord, man, we just set up the website, it just launched on the weekend. I think it's warlordband.com or warlordtheband.com. You might have, but go to the Facebook page, Warlord, and there's a link to the new website there. I think it's warlordband.com. You've got me at a disadvantage right now.
It is the Warlord Band. I have on that. I did find that and are following that. So yeah, get on over to these and cool. Check these stuff out. This is good stuff. Alcatrazz, as you mentioned, great metal band. Warlord, new stuff, first stuff in 9 years. Great to hear it. It's a great album, start to finish. Get out there and get it if you can. And then this new stuff going on with Jack Starr, which is pretty cool. Jack is a great guitar player, and I like all this stuff. So
he is
cool. All right, Giles. Yes, hey, you know what? That's the thing. I just read a little thing about somebody had posted about, what does it matter? Like this guy's playing in a studio that's $1 million studio recording, and he's recorded in spare bedrooms. He's played in front of 10,000 people, and he's played in front of a bartender and a door guy before. But as long as he's doing it and enjoying it and making a living from it, that's what he's all about. And it sounds like that's what you guys are doing. You're busy with a lot of projects, but it's enough to where you can sustain and keep yourselves busy in the music business, which is great.
Anywhere there's electricity, and if there ain't, we'll bring in a generator. So we're good.
Perfect. Well, Giles, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Metal Mayhem ROC for joining us today and discussing all of this. It's been great. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. You be good.
All right, so man, keep it heavy. Right. For Metal Mayhem ROC, I'm Southern Cal.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.